All right, so it's a little bit cooler out today, and I'm cooking what I call chunky chili. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I got this butter. I don't know how you pronounce that. I think it's Schmor. This is butter from Iceland. So generally speaking, I usually use Irish butter, which I'm a big fan of. But I saw this and I said, you know what? I'm going to buy this and I'm going to try it. I'm going to put in some butter. I like Irish butter because it's grass-fed and no hormones, and it's actually delicious. It's really good. So I'm going to melt a little bit of butter. Let me get a spoon here. Now when you're making this, I like things to be, because it's chunky chili, I like things to be a little bit chunkier. All right, so what we're going to do, I chopped up an onion, and I used a coarser chop, and the same thing with a green pepper. Bring up the heat a little bit. And I've mentioned in other videos I used to have a hot dog stand, and I made almost all the food, even soups and chili. And chili was a big seller. I make a big pot of it. I had a huge stainless steel pot. I'd make a big pot of it, and almost any time I had it, it would sell out. It's delicious though. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to soften this up. Just a little bit, and I can already smell from the onions and the green pepper, and it smells fantastic. All right, so we'll let this cook about 5 minutes, and while it's doing this, I'll get the beef ready to add to the pot. All right, so it's been cooking about 5 minutes. Give it a little stir. Just want to soften it up a little bit. I like to use a long cooking process for this. So what I did is I have a chuck roast that I chopped up and cubed. Most people want it in smaller pieces, but like I said, this is what I call chunky chili. Alright, so while that's in there, let's add a can of diced tomatoes. Give it another stir. Now everything goes in the pot right now with the exception of the beans. And this is going to be a 2-bean chunky chili. So I got black beans and I got kidney beans. So this is more of a rustic style. This is more the way I like it. I know there's other ways to cook it. A lot of people use ground beef. I got nothing against that, but that's not what I use in this recipe. So now I'm going to chop up some cilantro, and we're going to add that in just a minute. All right, I chopped up a bunch of cilantro. And I just love the way this stuff smells. Man, oh day. I tell you what, that smells fantastic. Give this a stir. It already smells great, and I'm just starting this recipe. All right, now I'm going to add some water to this. I've added 4 cups of water. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4 beef bouillon cubes and bring this up to a boil. Now if you wanted to save, you know, a little time, I guess, you could use the canned broth or in a box or whatever. But if you just use the cubes, you will save a little bit of money. Now we're going to give this a stir while we're waiting it to come up to a boil. And then what I'm going to add is, believe it or not, quite a bit of chili powder. All right, so that's a little more, filled it a little bit, but that's a 1/4 cup of chili powder. And then one of the things I keep around here all the time I'm going to add a teaspoon of white pepper. Now, a lot of times people cook this, you want to turn up the heat on it, you're going to put in, you know, cayenne pepper, red pepper flakes, what have you. But I have daughter-in-law that doesn't like to have anything too spicy. As they say in Spanish, mucho pica. So I keep it pretty simple. And this type of recipe, you know, it's not exactly mild, but you know, all these flavors come together. And one of the things I don't do is a lot of times they'll tell you to brown the beef cubes, especially when you're using chuck roast. They say it seals in the flavors. I say rubbish to that. I want all the flavors of this coming together. Beefy, tomatoey, peppers, onions, and that cilantro. Yeah, I just had a whiff of that. Boy, that smells friggin' awesome. So we're going to let this come up to a boil, and then in a minute we'll put the lid on it, and believe it or not, it's still early in the day for me. It's not even lunchtime yet, but I'm going to let this go for about 4 hours here in just a little bit. Alright, so this thing is just about at a boil here. I just want to say a few other things before I put the lid on it. Is, you know, my father wasn't a big fan of like hot sauce or spicy. I mean, he would eat spicy stuff, but his thing was pepper, like mac and cheese. If he had a steak on the plate, you know, it would be, get out that pepper grinder and just cover it in pepper. So I just want to say that's why I'm a fan of using pepper to some extent, because it gives it some extra flavor, but it's not going to kill you on the heat. You know what I mean? Alright, so that's at a good boil. I'll put the lid on it. I'm going to bring this down so that it just simmers and cooks for about 4 hours. Now what this is going to do is it's going to help tender. The meat's going to come out super tender, juicy, full of flavor, but it's also going to reduce the amount of liquid. And when I add the black beans and the kidney beans, stir it up, and if it needs any extra seasoning, I will address it before I add the beans. So I'll see you in 4 hours. All right, my chili's been cooking about an hour and a half. I just tasted it. It tastes great. But what I want to do is, I was thinking about this, is I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm going to give it a stir. Now I'm going to come back in about an hour and taste test it, which by that point it'll be cooking about 2.5 hours. And then what I'll do is taste test it again. I like to keep most of my recipes simple, and I think it tastes good as it is. But you know, because as I'm cooking it, I could smell the cilantro, and it smells awesome. All right, we'll check back in a little bit. All right, we've been cooking about 3.5 hours. Let's take the lid off. Give this a stir. You can see a lot of liquids been reduced. I've already opened and rinsed a can of kidney beans and a can of black beans. We're going to add those right now. Now this will make a very hearty and a very filling chili. It smells amazing. I'm just going to let it simmer like this at a lower temperature for maybe 30 minutes or so. The beans are already ready to go, so really you're just heating them through. And I know people use different beans. Kidney beans is normal for this. I like black beans, one of my favorites. I used to go to this Cuban restaurant in Hackensack. You know, like that. Always makes me think of that Billy Joel song, you know. Who needs a place out in Hackensack? Is that all you get for your money? But this Cuban place, I always started my meal with black bean soup, and I've never made it, and maybe it's something I should think about trying. You know, something I maybe should make, you know, for myself, because it's really tasty and delicious. All right, we're gonna put this in a soup mug here in about 30 minutes, and I'll let you know how it tastes. All right, so everything's cooked, everything's heated through. Like I said, you let this cook long enough, and not everybody does this, but you know, you reduce the liquid. Some people like to put, you know, like a thickening agent, like cornstarch or what have you. I don't really do that too often, except for maybe if I make Swedish meatballs. All right, this is Dom's magic pepper sauce. Give that a good amount. And there you go, chunky chili. Thank you for watching.